It is about time I shared with you what I read in Q1 of 2026. Welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. My name is Katrina and I make bookish content as well as movie reviews here on this channel every week. And yes, if you have missed it, I will link up above the 25 books I want to read in, 26 books I want to read in 2026. Was a year behind then. I used to do monthly wrap-ups and TBRs and stuff like that, but I was just finding that I wasn't sticking to it. It was just making me feel bad about myself. So now I do it quarterly instead. So I've got quite a few audiobooks to talk about and a couple of physical books to share with you. Firstly, at the start of the year, I went to go and see The Housemaid in cinemas, and so I listened to the first Housemaid book. It wasn't quite the start of the year, but I have a book versus movie video talking about it, so I will leave that one linked up above. But essentially, I fell down that rabbit hole of, oh, I quite like this, I'm going to read the rest of the series. So I listened to The Housemaid is Watching, the short version, The Housemaid's Wedding, the short story version, and of course The Housemaid's Secret, which I believe has started filming. So I really enjoyed The Housemaid's Secret. The Housemaid's Wedding was fine. It's a short story, so it's just like a novella. Sorry, I had something really spicy and it's really like got the back of my throat. So it's like 2.5. It's a novella, but again, I still listened on audio. It was very good. And then The Housemaid's Watching, I wasn't as much of a fan of that one, but then you know what it's like when you go, further through a series, you kind of do wane off interest, with like the exception of like the Shopaholic series or like the iHeart series, for me anyway. And I'm hoping, given my 26 books I want to read in 2026, that Heartstopper Volume 6 is also going to be awesome. But I just felt like by the time I got to the third book, I pretty much read them back to back as well, like gobbling them up as I went along. Yeah, it just didn't quite do it for me as much as the first two did, but I really enjoyed the first two books. Then I also listened to, recently out, this is The Lottery Winner Widows Club, and I actually got an audio copy of this one from NetGalley to listen to. This was just such a fun and funny audiobook, whilst being a little bit dark and a little bit mysterious at the same time. So this is Ellie Vine. So this is Lucy Vine writing as Ellie Vine, because this is a lot more sort of crimey and slightly less contemporary than her Lucy Vine novels, which are very much like aimed at people ever so slightly younger than me, but very much rom-com, like, we've got sex in there, we've got like lots of people who are not straight as well, whereas I feel like the Lottery Winner Widows Club, I have trouble saying that every single time, is aimed at a slightly older audience, because the breadth of the age of the characters in the novel is slightly older as well. But it was just a really fun time, like ever so slightly mystery crimey, but again quite rom-commy at the same time. And the mystery crime aspect of it, you find yourself not trusting people, which I think was really interesting. Then I also listened to, switching to a bit of non-fiction now, this was narrated by the author, and I actually listened to this one with Ollie. We listened together in the car, and this is You with the Sad Eyes by Christina Applegate, which I sort of first really enjoyed watching Christina Applegate on screen in The Sweetest Thing. I didn't sort of discover her through Married with Children, and then obviously got to know her for playing Rachel's other sister in Friends, and then Dead to Me on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing. And this was just really, really sad. I know it's literally called You with the Sad Eyes, but it was a lot darker and a lot less hopeful and a lot more cynical. But then, as somebody with like a long-term illness that is causing her obviously physical disability, you can understand why it's a little bit sad and a little bit dark. However, it is read by the author. It is funny. it is definitely tell all and it is hopeful at the same time. So I really recommend this one. I borrowed it from the library and it was fabulous. Then another one from my 26 books I want to read in 2026. I didn't realise this was part of like a short story series. So I sat down to read this as like, oh, it's a new Christina Lauren book. But it's actually, thankfully, it's like number one in the series. So these are like Amazon original stories. And it's just like, it was just lovely and cute. And it had that Christina Lauren like signature loveliness with like a little bit of extra bite, but not too much bite. And I just really, really enjoyed it. I picked up the next couple of ones in the series just to dip into. I haven't got to them yet, but I really enjoyed this one. It came out around Valentine's Day, so I think I probably read it around then as well. And that was, yeah, just a romance, short romance. And then this one was a little bit, I can't find it now. It was a little bit sort of sorry, surprising because I hadn't read the blurb first, and so I just went, oh, it's Josie Lloyd and Emily Reed, of course I have to read it. You know, Josie Lloyd and Emily Reed like wrote some of the books that got me back into reading when I just discovered like that you could read a rom-com. So this is One Couple, One Past a Million Tomorrows, and you can see it's got a tape player on there. And this book, I mean, this might be a bit of a spoiler, I haven't read the blurb, but this book involves a little bit of time travel, which I sort of didn't see coming, but once I was sort of on board with it, I was like, oh, this is an interesting concept. I like this. We go into the shed and we play a tape and we get to go back to the past. Very interesting. And it was just a lot of fun. I whizzed through it really quite quickly. It was one of those things where I was like, oh, I've got a little moment to myself. I'll put my audiobook on and listen to the audiobook of it. And it was just kind of a good time had by all. And unexpectedly so. And then the very first book that I read this year, let me switch back again. Actually, I should have started with this one really, but this is Vagabond by Tim Curry, which again is somebody who, you know, I have loved watching their movies and, you know, really enjoy the sound of Tim Curry's voice. Obviously, Tim Curry had a stroke not too long ago, and so was left unable to sort of walk and talk initially, as a lot of people who are stroke victims are. But so the fact that he's written this book and then narrated the audiobook himself is just like mega. It's interesting sort of him talking about being Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror, or him talking about being Rooster in Annie. They're my favourite Tim Curry performances. And pairing that voice and that character and that sort of stature of a person to the person narrating this audiobook, I found it a little bit of a disconnect. And his speech has a certain candour because he is somebody who has obviously learnt to speak again, which is not necessarily like we're used to in like everyday interactions with people, and so it takes a little bit of getting used to as well. However, it's a lot of bang for your buck. This is a fairly long audiobook, and I'm quite glad that it was the first one that I finished in 2026. I like the fact that I started the year with a non-fiction, and a really sort of sweet non-fiction at that. However, there is a lot of name dropping in this book, so just be warned if you're picking that up. Yes, it is narrated by Tim Curry, but he is going to name drop like nobody's business. Then I did a reread. I reread People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and then watched the film of the book, and I have a book versus movie, I think I do. So I will leave that linked up above in case you haven't already seen that, where I talk a little bit more in detail about this one. But this one was definitely one that I preferred more on a reread, which, I mean, I often find that to be the case, but I remember being not terribly overwhelmed by it when I first read it, when it first came out. But I enjoyed the reread a lot more. Interestingly, I listened to this one with my mum, and she wasn't such a fan of it, but she thinks that she read it before as well and preferred it before. So it's interesting that we like went the opposite way with it. So speaking of things I read in order to watch a film or a series, which seems to be quite a theme going through our reading in Q1. I read Game Changer because this is the first book in the Heated Rivalry series, which is currently showing as a limited series. I think it's a limited series. I don't know. A series on Sky TV. So the Heated Rivalry series is out. I have read Game Changer and I am about halfway through Heated Rivalry. I'm not vibing with the book series terribly. I'm finding it a little bit boring and repetitive. However, I will reserve full judgment for when I make my book versus TV series video once I've finished listening to Heated Rivalry and watching Heated Rivalry, the show. So, yeah, this is male romance, barista, hockey player. Interesting. I have never actually seen a hockey game, ice hockey game anyway. I've been meant to go and see an ice hockey game twice now and not actually gone and seen it. So we'll see what I think of the series. And then I did a buddy read with the lovely Hayley. We hadn't done a buddy read for absolutely ages, and we read together Walking on Sunshine by Heidi Swain. This is not the first time Hayley and I have read a Heidi Swain novel together, but it was really, really fun to read with her. And I was like, listen, I just don't read as much as I used to in terms of me having time or like awakeness in order to read. So can we just do maybe like 10% a day and read it over 10 days? And it just suited us both down to the ground. I read 10% over breakfast every day, and it was just a really lovely way to start the day. I really enjoy reading over breakfast. When I'm not too tired, I do try and kind of get myself to slot it in then. I have an upcoming video where I'm reading quick reads books over breakfast and lunch. So you'll see that then. But yes, this summer, the heat is on. This summer, the heat is on. And this was just, as you know, a sweet Heidi Swain novel. It follows the same formula as her other rom-coms. Oh, sorry, my computer just interrupted me there. But yeah, it follows the same format as other rom-coms, but it felt a little bit more of a slow burn this time. I think I said to Hayley, and she sort of said as well, we both felt that it was, you know, slightly slower paced than her previous novels. I really loved her recent autumn one, All Wrapped Up. That was in my Q4 wrap up, I think, of 2025. And so maybe I'd kind of gone from that one to this one a little too quickly, and I wasn't ready for summer yet. I don't know. It was still very cute and very sweet. It just felt a little bit slower paced. I was kind of waiting still for something to happen when we were at like 90%, 10% left to go. And then one that I read in school, I've got two here that I read in school for you, which is kind of not usually my thing because it is a fantasy novel. And this is The Girl of Ink and Stars by Karen Millwood Hargrave. And this is a middle grade YA novel about maps and an island and a girl. And I feel like I should be able to talk a little more eloquently on it, but it's very well written. I enjoyed teaching it. However, in terms of reading for pleasure, it's not my thing anyway. We knew that going into it. And I don't think, even though it's beautifully written and there's lots of like rich description and imagery and there's lots to teach from, it's still not my thing in terms of I didn't necessarily like it. However, this author has just come out with an adult novel, and I don't know anything about it. So if you have read this or you have read her adult novel, let me know if you think it would be my sort of thing or if it's too like this. Knowing that I don't like this, would I like that? Because I'm kind of toying with the idea of requesting it from the library, but I don't want to get it and then be like, no, don't like this author at all. And then we're back to another book versus movie. And I'm sat here and I'm like, I can't even remember if I made the book versus movie for this one. We might be, I mean, I watched it like 4 weeks ago, and we might be too far away for me to do it. I don't know. But this is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. You might remember from me talking about previous Colleen Hoover books that I've read in order to either read the one that everyone's talking about or watch a book versus movie, watch a movie of the book. I think this is the third one I've read that is the movie of the book of the movie. And I just didn't like it. I think between the two, I potentially preferred the movie. However, I was excited going into it, knowing that it was set in Laramie, Wyoming, having been to Laramie, Wyoming. And then I was watching the film and I was like, it doesn't look all that like Laramie. I remember Laramie being like a bit more towny and a bit bigger. And then I found out that it was filmed in Alberta. So again, until we watch the book versus movie video that I make or have made, who knows, I don't really want to say a whole lot more because yeah, there was just, I don't know, as a writer, I do find her very repetitive and very cookie cutter, sort of plot wise. But then, you know, I sort of said that the Heidi Swain novel I read was very much the same as other Heidi Swain novels that I've read. Then I listened to, had to think then, did I listen? Did I watch? I listened to This Wasn't Meant to Happen by Ali Harris. Now, I kind of got my hold of this one approved a while before I then actually ended up listening to it. I sort of suspended my hold for a little bit because I knew going into it, it was tough subject matter and it was going to be upsetting, but I know that I love Ali Harris and I love her writing, and I know that this is based on some of her lived experiences, and so I knew I wanted to read it eventually, but I just knew I had to be in the right mindset to read it. So some love stories begin where others end, and this deals with baby loss and stillbirth, and so really do know that going into it. However, again, Ali Harris is just such an amazing writer, and no matter what she writes, she's going to make me cry. Like, she absolutely broke me with her debut novel. And so I was like, I know she's going to do this well. And I think listening to the audiobook helped me to like distance myself a little bit, although I did find myself driving to work and crying quite a lot one morning. But I think if I'd been reading it as a novel or an ebook, I think I would have definitely had more, not had more grief, but like felt it even further because I would have been totally absorbed by it. I feel like when there was like a moment that was, you know, uncomfortable for me to listen to, I could just then distract myself by doing something else at the same time. Not that I was distracted driving listening to it, but kind of like, oh, think about what's outside the window, or I'd be listening and doing something in the house, or listening and doing something in my classroom before school, something like that. So that's where I kind of feel like I diluted the pain a little bit for myself. But yeah, definitely before picking that one up, it's an amazing book and just beautifully written, and the subject matter's beautifully handled. However, definitely read the author's note. There's one at the beginning and one at the end. The author's note before picking it up or deciding to pick it up, because I'm pretty sure even if you're buying it online, you can read that page, because yeah, you just need to know what you're going into. And then I read So I Met This Guy by Alexandra Potter, and I've been an Alexandra Potter fan for many, many, many years, and this was like an auto buy, download, whatever you want to call it for me, especially having loved her Confessions of a 40-something fuck up, both the series and the book. And I really loved the book, and I think I reread it to watch the series too. So I was excited going into this one. And even as I sit here talking about it now, I'm like, it just wasn't that memorable. I just kind of, you know, can't remember exactly what happened in it or what happened with the main characters. And I remember at the time reading it and being just a little bit disappointed. I was like, I'm reading this and I'm taking it in, but am I taking it in? And it turns out, having to talk about it a couple of months later, because I definitely read this one in January, yeah, I don't remember an awful lot about it. And so clearly this book didn't really stay with me the way some of the others that I've read so far this year have. I mean, I think I laughed, but I can't be sure. So I'd maybe stick with some of the other Alexandra Potter novels over that one. I mean, other reviewers are enjoying it, but I just don't think that one was for me. I maybe wasn't in the right mindset to read it. And then this one is from the authors of the Merry Little Meet Cute series, which I have been absolutely loving since it first came out. I had never read any Siera Simone until the Merry Little Meet Cute series, but always been a fan of Julie Murphy, discovered her through Dumpling, and then just loved all her other books since. And this is The Fundamentals of Being a Good Girl, which was on my 26 books I want to read in 2026. And it's basically a spin-off from the Merry Little Meet Cute series, in that you have some of the characters from those books in this one. There's like a tenuous link between the main characters, and they like pop up at a party or pop up at a wedding or pop up at a like family gathering. And this was just it was just fun. It was just a fun distraction. There was some good sex in there. There was some different sex in there. And there's some really good fat representation, as well as, you know, non-straight relationships. And I just love what these authors are doing, and I will just pick up anything that they've written because I just think that they're doing an amazing job. And if you're kind of looking for a bit of escapism, and you like the sound of my description there, really do recommend that one. I think I've covered all the non-physical books. Obviously, Girl of Ink and Stars was also a physical read because I read it at school. But I read one that I really wanted to get to in 2025, and I finally read it in 2026. I thought it was going to be the first book that I finished. I think I posted on my Instagram that it was the first book that I read. So it's the first book that I started. However, I finished Vagabond first, so technically that was the first book. But this was It's Always the Husband by C.L. Taylor, which was just an amazing time. One dead wife is tragic. Two looks like murder. She just writes such a page turner. Like, she knows how to get you to the end of a chapter and then make you want to read the start of the next chapter. Then you have to finish the next chapter, and it's a whole thing. But again, I had the physical copies because I'm pretty sure I got a review copy of it, and then I maybe like downloaded the audiobook of it or something, but it took me actually buying the physical copy of it in order to read it. And it was just really interesting. So it was giving a little bit of Pretty Little Liars and a little bit like Amanda Land, Motherland type of thing. One of the characters definitely reminded me of Amanda, or like Working Moms, that kind of thing. So that's your vibe, with like a little bit more like whodunit, stabby murdery thrown in, true crime on Netflix, then this one is definitely for you. It's fantastic, and I can't wait to read her 2026 release because I love a C.L. Taylor. And then one that was a reread for me, but I feel like maybe I wasn't teaching full time, or teaching the class that was reading this full time, or I took over partway through a term or something like that. And I was supply teaching at the time, but I read and enjoyed and watched the movie of, and also really enjoyed, Goodnight, Mr. Tom. This was so fun to read. And I mean, when I read it out loud as well, I did the voices too. Which was also fun. So we didn't quite finish it in school, so I brought a copy home with me, and ended up reading it over, finishing reading it over May half term, and it was just really fun. Again, it was really fabulous to teach. It was great to link with our history topic. I remember looking at the book, looking at the movie when I taught it before. Maybe it's just because I taught it before that I don't really remember everything about it, but I just feel like I got so much more into reading it this time that I had to like go away and read bits in between and then finish it off reading it literally by myself in a Costa. And yeah, lots and lots of fun. So I can't remember exactly how many books I read. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 books, which is pretty good. I feel like that's more than my Q1 wrap up last year. I'm going to go check. Yes, it is. I read 11 books in Q1 last year. And again, some of those were school books, so I'm not like cheating by including school books. I know 2 of the ones I read this year were novellas, but 17 is still brilliant. And funnily enough, I read 2 last year, Julie Murphy and Siera Simone books, one of which was a novella. It was like a 2.5 situation as well, and like 3 of the books that I talked about were school books too, so similar situation, but definitely in my reading groove, in my reading vibe a little more this year than I was last year. Says a little something about the job that I'm doing. But I'm really happy with that, and I'm happy as always with the balance. We've got fiction, we've got non-fiction, we've got rom-com, we've got middle grade, we've got thriller, yeah, a lot of different books in there. So I have already finished 3, maybe, no, I've already finished 4 books for Q2, and we're only halfway through April, so it's looking promising. It's looking promising. So that's nearly 6 books a month for Q1. So if I've already done 4, I need to try and finish another couple before the end of April to be on track for the same. We know I don't read a lot in May because SATs, but then June could look promising. A little bit of hard term reading. Sorry for rambling on at the end here. Let me know what you read in Q1 of 2026, how your 2026 reading is going in general. Have you been sticking to your kind of yearly wish list, or have you veered off and found some other things, or like me, your library has suggested other things you may like? I will be back with another video for you very soon. I've still got a couple of book versus movie videos lined up, as well as my quick reads 2026, which is how I finished so many books already, lined up to read as well, to film as well. So you're not going to want to miss out on those. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss those. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you with my next one. Thanks for watching. Woo!